Apple Classroom is a great way to monitor what your kids are doing on their iPads, and the best part about it is you can do it from the comfort of your own seat. So if you've already gotten your 10,000 steps, no need to worry, you don't have to get any more steps. Just sit there and monitor away. So here's how it works. I'm using the MacBook edition of this as opposed to using like an iPad, but it looks basically the same. So I'm going to go to my Launchpad and I'm going to find it, which is right here. Okay, so I've already created a few little things here. When you first get in, it's going to ask you for your teacher information like your name and your picture. I've already gotten past that point. So I'm at the point now where I'm going to create a class. The very first time you get in, all you're going to see is a blue button that says create class. But it basically is going to work this way. So I have a plus here. If I click on that, then it pops up with this little window. So I have to give my class a name. And you can put a description in if you want. You don't have to. And then you would give it some kind of icon and some kind of color. I recommend using different colors for each of your different classes just because it's easy to tell them apart at a glance. So like when I create this, see, there it is. So it's very easy for me to tell the difference between first, second, and third period. Just so you know, there's a number of other things to pay attention to really quick. If you hover your mouse button over a class, 3 little dots appear. Anytime you see 3 dots, that's a menu. So if I click on that, it gives me the ability to edit this and even remove it. Up here, that little icon in the up left corner, that's how I can edit my teacher information. So there's my picture, I could edit it and put in a picture, there's my name. This plus allows me to create a class as well, so that's another avenue for creating a class. And then if I select a class, this menu becomes available, and there's another way. Okay, so you got lots of different ways to do the same kind of thing, essentially. So we're going to go into this third period social studies class that I just created. And here we are. I'm going to say allow. All right, so it's a new class, so I need to invite some students in as the very first thing I do. So I'm going to click on this. And the way it works is that students are going to go, they have to have their Bluetooth on, so students are going to go in their iPad to their classroom settings, or to the classroom in settings or system preferences, and enter this code, so 7774. And so I have this up on my whiteboard, or I have it somewhere where the students can see, but essentially they're sitting there working, so you'll see what it looks like from your end here. I'm going to get a student in. So as you can see, once the kid enters in, I'll get a little icon and it'll say his name. So as you start seeing this populate, you'll see all your kids in there, and then it's just a matter of, kind of counting up how many kids you have in class and making sure that they're all in. So now I'm going to show you what it looks like from the student's point of view so that you can kind of see how that looks. So here's a student iPad trying to get into the same class. The student is going to go to settings. And then on the left, you can see right under Bluetooth, it says classroom. So if I click on that, as a student, I can see my various classes. I'm in the class called Fluffy. There's not much substance to that class. Period 2, and it says add third period social studies. That's the class I'm trying to get into. So if I click on that, so now it's going to ask me for the code. And the code was 7774. And I'll click add. And if you notice, up at the top it says waiting for teacher. So we're going to go back to the teacher side of things so that you can kind of see what that looks like now that we have 2 kids in this class. So here we are back at the teacher side of things. You can see my 2 classes, David and Joe Schmo. They have blue check marks. So at this point all I have to do is hit add. Okay, now we're in the main part of Apple Classroom, and I have thumbnails for each of my different kids. So obviously, you'd have probably 25, 30 of these. But everything I'm going to show you, you can do to individual kids' iPads, or you can apply to an entire class. So, for instance, right, we can see that David is still in his settings, but as he moves around, notice that it kind of changes here. So if David goes into Safari, See, now it's going to change. Joe is still in his settings, but as he moves around, things will change as well. He just went into IXL. So you have a little, notification essentially when you see their screens change as to what they're doing. I'm going to come up here and just kind of take you through the various different things that you can do up here so that you can see what each of these buttons does. Okay, so this one right here will open an app on student iPads. Now the deal with this is that they have to have the app already installed on their iPads. So I don't know what they both have here. They probably both have Gmail. So if I click on Gmail and hit open, it's going to force their iPads to go to Gmail. I'll click done. You can see here David's in Gmail and Joe is in Gmail. So this is a nice way to, quickly have kids go to IXL, let's say, or whatever app it is that you're working on, instead of having to wait for them to sit there and find it and whatnot. Now there's nothing to prevent them from leaving, so David just exited it out because he didn't feel like being on Gmail at this point, but it is a quick way to get them someplace. So this next icon here says open a link on student iPads. So the way this works is you have to bookmark the link. So prior, to doing this, you would go bookmark the link, whatever it is or where you want them to go, and then you're just going to point them to your bookmark. So I'm going to click on Safari, you can go to favorites, and we'll click on one of my bookmarks here, maybe the Buzz login, and then I'll hit navigate. Oh, and really quickly it says also lock in app after opening. You can select that so that they're stuck there. I'll just hit navigate. It says 2 iPads navigated, hit done. Now you can see that both David and Joe are in Safari, and if you could see their iPads, you'd see that they were in the Buzz login. Okay, so that's what that is. This next icon is an AirPlay, so you have to select a screen. So let's say David's doing something good here in Buzz, then you would click on the AirPlay and you could AirPlay it to a specific TV in your room or whatever. So that's how that works. Notice here it says students and screens. I like having screens up because it actually gives you a little thumbnail of whatever's on their screen. So we had David sit there and go to the Buzz login, but maybe David decided instead to check his fantasy football team, which is currently in second place after a resounding victory last week. He's obviously not doing Buzz though, and you can kind of see that with your little thumbnail there, so I can go visit David and tell him to get back to work. So that's what this screens and students thing is. Over here it says lock student iPads. So if I click this, then it locks their iPads. Or actually, excuse me, it's just going to lock David's iPad right now because I had him selected. So I would have to unselect him. Let me unlock it. There we go. I would have to make sure I don't have anybody selected. Now I can lock it. There we go. So now both of them are locked. And I'll show you what that looks like on the iPad here as well. They can try to get out of it. There is a way technically for them to get out of it, but it's a good quick way for you to lock their iPads and have them pay attention to you. I would also have them close their iPads and put them down on the desk or something as well. So here's what it looks like from the student point of view. I'm on a student iPad, here I am. Should be doing my work, but instead I'm in my fantasy football team. Look at that, third place, 2-1. Big showdown this week with the Noble Knights, or a Noble Knight. Anyways, teacher notices, decides to lock me, and bam! Look at that. I am stuck. Sad days, nothing I can do here. And in fact, here comes the teacher, so even more sad days coming. Anyways, that's how you lock a student iPad, and that's what it looks like from the student point of view. So I'm going to unlock it. Notice the lock changes to an unlock. There we go. Okay, this button right here hides apps. So what it does is it hides the current app that these kids are in and puts them back on their home screen. So David's in Swift Playgrounds, Joe is in his Gmail. I can come up here and click on this, and it says it's hid the apps on the 2 iPads. I'll hit done, and you can see Joe and David are both back at their home screen. So that's what that does. This mutes the sound on those iPads. So like I said earlier, you can go in and do all of this just to one person as opposed to the whole class, and you can also double click on somebody and you can see their screen kind of in a blown up view. So as you're sitting there and you're looking at 30 different thumbnails of kids, if it looks like someone might be not doing what they're supposed to, you can double click on them and see a big blow up of their screen, and then you'll know exactly what they're doing. So, you know, he opened another tab and he's going to ESPN because he has a fantasy football team too, and he doesn't have quite as good of a fantasy football team though. So you can kind of see what he's doing, and then all of these different commands up here apply to that individual iPad. So I see he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. I could lock his iPad, and there we go. Now his iPad is locked, and I'll go over and pay him a visit and see if we can't get him straightened up so he's back on task. And then when he is, I unlock the iPad. Okay. So to get out of that, you go to Show All, and you're back. You also have some menu items up here. You can put kids in groups. That's kind of impossible with just 2 kids, but I could put kids in groups, so that if I have, you know, groups of 4 working on a group project or whatever, I could put them in groups, and then I could sit there and, you know, lock a certain group's iPads, let's say, because I need to go talk to them or whatever, or direct different groups to different websites that they're going to be needing or whatever. And you can see there's all these other ones. Most of them are pretty self-explanatory because they just give you a way to do what I already showed you to do. All right. The very last thing that you're going to have to do is end the class. So the bell rings, period's over, you click on end class. This removes all of those iPads from that class temporarily until they come back in the next day and you start the class again, and it allows them to go to their next class. And I like the computer version of Apple Classroom because it gives you a little report on that period, so I can see that every student was in Gmail, etc., etc. You know, Joe was in 4 apps, David was in 4 apps, and it even says click on an app to see which students opened it. So I can see Joe spent 3 minutes on it, David spent 2 minutes on it. So this is kind of a handy little thing as well at the end of a class, you know, especially when you go through and you find that, oh, you missed a kid and he spent 10 minutes in an app he shouldn't have been in, or whatever. Anyways, once you're done with that, hit done. And now you're back here, ready to go for 4th period. Anyways, that's how you do Apple Classroom. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you make use of it in class.